The year was 2147 when the convoy arrived in Earth's solar system. They were a proud species, tall beings with silver skin and 4 arms. Their ships were massive, beautiful vessels that blocked out the sun when they passed over major cities. Humanity watched in fear and wonder as these visitors from the stars made contact. They were not conquerors. They were something worse in their own minds. They were travelers passing through, and they saw Earth as nothing more than a rest stop. Their leader, High Commander, spoke to the United Nations through a translator device. His words were clear and cutting. "Your species is young," said, his tone carrying the weight of someone explaining simple things to a child. "You have not yet discovered faster-than-light travel. You have not mastered energy manipulation. You are still burning dead plants for power. We will rest here for 3 of your months. We will take water from your oceans. In exchange, we will leave behind what we no longer need." The world leaders looked at each other with confusion. What did that mean? What would they leave behind? The answer came when they departed. Behind them, scattered across the Sahara Desert, lay mountains of alien garbage, broken ship parts, damaged power cells, cracked display screens, torn cables that hummed with strange energy, containers filled with unknown liquids. They had literally dumped their trash on Earth and flown away, laughing at the primitive monkeys who could not even reach their nearest planets. News channels around the world showed the footage. Millions of tons of alien junk sat in the desert sand. Environmental groups protested. Politicians argued about whose responsibility it was to clean up. Religious leaders called it a sign from the heavens. Most of the galaxy, watching through hidden observation posts, expected humanity to simply bury the garbage and move on with their small lives. They were wrong. Dr. Sarah was the first to arrive at the dump site with a scientific team. She was a physicist from Beijing, a woman who had spent her entire life dreaming of the stars. When she touched the first piece of broken machinery, her hands shook with excitement rather than fear. "This is not garbage," she whispered to her colleague, Dr. James from Nigeria. "This is a library." Within weeks, research camps surrounded the alien dump site. Scientists from every nation came together in a way that had never happened before. Every piece of junk. They photographed everything. They ran tests that sometimes exploded and sometimes revealed wonders beyond imagination. A broken power cell that they had thrown away still contained more energy than all of Earth's nuclear plants combined. It was cracked and leaking, useless by alien standards. But human engineers figured out how to tap into its remaining power. They built adapters. They created converters. They learned. The cables that hummed with strange energy were actually fiber optic systems that used quantum entanglement. Even damaged, they could transmit data faster than anything humans had ever created. Computer scientists took these broken cables and built a new internet. Within 2 years, connection speeds increased by 10,000 times. Doctor made the biggest discovery of all. Inside a crushed navigation computer, she found fragments of star maps. They had thrown away outdated charts like old newspapers. But to humanity, these charts showed the locations of thousands of star systems. They showed trade routes. They showed where other species lived. They showed everything. "They gave us a map of the galaxy," Doctor announced at a global summit. "They thought they were throwing away garbage. Instead, they handed us the keys to the universe." The world changed faster than anyone expected. Human engineers did not try to copy alien technology exactly. They could not. The materials were strange. The principles were different. Instead, they did what humans had always done. They adapted. They improvised. They made things their own way. A young engineer from Brazil named Marco discovered that the alien metal scraps could be melted and combined with earth metals to create alloys stronger than anything previously known. He called it steel. Within 5 years, it replaced normal steel in spacecraft construction. A team in Japan figured out how to recharge dead alien power cells using modified nuclear reactors. The cells were not as efficient as new ones would be, but they worked. Earth suddenly had more power than it knew what to do with. The biggest breakthrough came from an unlikely source. A group of students at MIT found a damaged alien engine among the junk. It was small, barely the size of a car engine. They had probably used it for nothing more important than powering a garbage disposal unit. But when the students opened it up, they found principles of physics that human scientists had only theorized about. The engine worked by folding space. It created tiny wrinkles in the fabric of reality and pushed through them. The alien version was elegant and complex. The human version that followed was crude and loud and shook violently during operation. But it worked. In 2157, just 10 years after the visit, humanity launched its first faster-than-light ship. It was not beautiful like alien vessels. It was blocky and covered in patches. It looked like something held together by tape and hope. The press called it the junkyard dog. The junkyard dog reached Alpha in 3 days. It returned safely. Humanity was no longer trapped on one small planet. They heard about this development through their spy networks. High Commander, now much older, received the report with disbelief. How could a primitive species achieve FTL travel so quickly? It had taken the 2,000 years to develop their first faster-than-light engine. Humans had done it in 10 years using broken garbage. They must have stolen the technology, insisted. Send an investigation team. The investigation team arrived at Earth expecting to find evidence of theft. Instead, they found something that terrified them. Humans had not stolen anything. They had invented their own systems using the scraps as inspiration. Their technology was different from technology. In some ways, it was worse. In other ways, it was better. Human engines were louder and less efficient, but they could be repaired with simple tools. Engines required special equipment that only existed on their home world. Human power cells held less energy, but they could be recharged anywhere, using almost any power source. Cells needed specific radiation frequencies to recharge. Human ships were ugly and patched together, but they could take damage that would destroy alien vessels and keep flying. Human engineers had built redundancy into everything because they expected things to break. The galaxy began to take notice of the strange species from the third planet of an unremarkable star. Humans spread quickly. They colonized Mars first, then the moons of Jupiter. They built stations in the asteroid belt. They reached other star systems and claimed planets that no one else wanted. Other species watched with growing concern. The humans were not aggressive. They did not start wars, but they were everywhere, multiplying and building and creating. They traded with anyone who would trade with them. They learned from every species they met, and they improved everything they touched. A merchant sold humans outdated communication devices. Humans studied them and built better ones within a year. A scientist shared basic chemistry with humans as a joke. Humans used it to create medicines that even doctors found impressive. The pattern repeated across the galaxy. Whatever scraps other species gave humans, whether as gifts or insults or accidents, humans turned them into something more. They were not the species. They were not the strongest. They were not the most advanced. But they were the most stubborn, the most creative, and the most unwilling to accept limitations. 50 years after they dumped their garbage on Earth, humanity controlled a trade network spanning 200 star systems. They had built stations at key jump points. They had created an economy based on taking broken things and making them work again. The once proud travelers who looked down on primitive species now sent ambassadors to Earth. They wanted to negotiate. They wanted to understand. They wanted to know how garbage had become the foundation of an empire. Doctor, now very old, met with the ambassador in the same desert where their junk had once been dumped. The sand had been cleared. A great city now stood there, powered by repurposed alien technology. Your people threw away what you did not need, Doctor said to the ambassador. You saw no value in broken things, but we are humans. We have always been creatures who survive by using what others discard. We built our first tools from broken rocks. We made our first shelters from fallen branches. You gave us a mountain of possibilities and called it garbage. The ambassador had no response. What could be said? They had handed humans the pieces of a puzzle and expected them to throw the pieces away. Instead, humans had solved the puzzle and built a new picture entirely. In the following decades, humanity's influence only grew. They became known as the fixers, the species that could repair anything and improve everything. They were not feared. They were respected. They had earned their place among the stars not through conquest or ancient heritage but through simple, stubborn refusal to waste anything. The galaxy learned a lesson it would never forget. Never underestimate a species that grew up on a planet of limited resources. Never dismiss those who learned survival by making something from nothing. And most importantly, never give humans your garbage. They will turn it into an empire. And so the story of humanity among the stars was written, not with weapons or wars, but with welding torches and imagination, from junk to glory, from insult to inspiration, from a small blue planet to 100 worlds. This was the human way. They had looked at Earth and seen monkeys playing with fire. They had not understood that fire was just the beginning. Humans had always been burning something, always changing, always building. The universe was simply a larger workshop now. And in that workshop, nothing was ever truly garbage. Everything could be useful. Everything could be repurposed. Everything, given enough time and human stubbornness, could become the engine of greatness. This is how empires are built, not by those who have everything, but by those who know the value of what others throw away.